First contact's price. The harvester ships arrived on a Tuesday. They emerged from fold space with the characteristic purple flash that humanity's astronomers had been tracking for decades, but this time they didn't maintain their usual distance. This time, they came straight for Earth. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the supposedly primitive International Space Station Delta, watching the massive vessels approach. To any outside observer, the station appeared to be nothing more than a slightly larger version of humanity's early space stations, all exposed struts and solar panels. The perfect picture of a species just beginning to reach for the stars. They're broadcasting the standard resource acquisition notice, Admiral. Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, his fingers dancing across what appeared to be basic touchscreens, but were actually quantum-linked interfaces, same as all the other worlds they've stripped. Chen nodded, her expression grim. For 50 years, humanity had watched these beings systematically harvest other worlds, always staying just out of reach, always believing Earth was too primitive to understand what they were seeing. They had no idea that every purple flash had been analyzed, every transmission decoded, every harvested world documented. "How many ships in the fleet?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. The harvesters always sent exactly what they thought they needed. No more, no less. 15 capital ships, Admiral. Standard harvest configuration. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Exactly as intelligence predicted. Commence operation looking glass. Throughout the solar system, carefully hidden sensors activated. Quantum entanglement communicators, reversed engineered from salvaged alien tech, transmitted data faster than light itself. And in the shadows of planets and moons, humanity's real fleet waited. The harvesters had no reason to be suspicious. Their scans showed exactly what they expected. A primitive civilization with basic spacecraft, simple satellites, and rudimentary weapons. They didn't notice how their scans were being subtly guided, showing them what they wanted to see. They didn't realize that humanity had learned to hide in plain sight by studying their very own technology. "They're deploying harvester drones," Rodriguez reported, starting with the mineral deposits in the Antarctic. Chen pressed a button on her command chair, broadcasting to the entire human fleet. "All ships, execute primary plan. Remember, we only get one shot at surprise. Make it count." Across the solar system, stealth fields dropped. The real ISS Delta shimmered into view, not a primitive station, but a state-of-the-art command center. And it wasn't alone. Hundreds of ships appeared, their designs an elegant fusion of human innovation and reversed engineered alien technology. The harvester ships didn't even have time to raise their shields before the first salvos hit them. Quantum-tipped missiles phased through their hull armor as if it weren't there. Gravity lances, weapons the harvesters thought impossible for primitives to create, tore through their formations with surgical precision. Multiple direct hits, Rodriguez called out, his voice steady despite the excitement of humanity's first true interstellar battle. "Their shields are failing to engage. They still haven't updated their systems from the last time we studied them." That was the harvesters' fatal flaw, Chen knew. They had become complacent, relying on the same technologies and tactics that had served them for centuries. They never expected a primitive species to not only understand their technology, but improve upon it. The battle was over in minutes. 14 of the 15 harvester ships were disabled, their crews contained in quantum stasis fields. The 15th ship, as planned, was allowed to escape, but not before its systems were thoroughly compromised by human cyber warfare suites. Chen stood from her command chair, watching the disabled alien ships float harmlessly in Earth orbit. "Send the message," she ordered. "The one we've been preparing for 50 years." Rodriguez nodded, and across every frequency the harvesters used, in their own language, humanity spoke its first official words to the galaxy. "We know what you've done. We know how many worlds you've destroyed. And now you're going to help us make things right." It was only the beginning. The fleeing harvester ship would carry more than just news of defeat. It would carry encoded human programs, quantum viruses that would spread through the Harvester's network, gathering intelligence and preparing for humanity's next move. Earth had revealed its hand, but it had not shown all its cards. Not yet. Operation Silent Thunder. The Harvester ship limped through fold space, its quantum wake destabilized by the damage it had sustained. In its wake, it left a trail of data that only human quantum sensors could detect, exactly as planned. Dr. Maya Patel stood in the holographic command center of the Terran vessel Shadow of Dawn, watching the stream of information their probes were collecting. Her team had spent decades preparing for this moment, designing viruses that would spread through the Harvester's outdated networks like wildfire. "The quantum tracking is holding," her assistant, Dr. James Chen, reported. "Their emergency protocols are exactly what we predicted from the archive data. They're heading straight for the Harvester hub in the Carina sector." Maya nodded, her dark eyes reflecting the holographic displays. "And our package, already beginning to replicate. Their systems are trying to purge it, but..." James allowed himself a small smile. "They might as well be using stone tools against quantum algorithms." The Shadow of Dawn followed at a safe distance, hidden behind layers of stealth technology that the humans had perfected through years of observing Harvester blind spots. The ship itself was a testament to human ingenuity, smaller than the massive Harvester vessels, but far more advanced. Where the Harvesters built their ships like floating fortresses, humans had learned to build them like living things, adaptive, resilient, and ever-evolving. "Contact from Admiral Chen," the communications officer announced. "The interrogations of the captured Harvester crews are yielding results." "They're not what we expected." The holographic display shifted, showing the Admiral's stern face. "Dr. Patel, we've made a discovery that changes everything. The Harvesters aren't the top of their hierarchy. They're just the visible face of something much larger, an alliance called the Eternal Concordat." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Their intelligence had hinted at something like this, but confirmation made it real. "How many species are we talking about?" 7 major species, hundreds of minor ones, most of them enslaved through technology addiction and engineered dependencies. "The Harvesters are just the resource gatherers." Chen's expression darkened. "And Earth wasn't chosen at random. We were next on their list for uplifting, their term for technological enslavement." The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just stopped a resource raid. They had disrupted the plans of an interstellar empire. "Track that ship," Chen ordered, "but maintain absolute stealth protocols. We need to learn everything we can about this Concordat before we make our next move." For 3 days, the Shadow of Dawn followed the damaged Harvester vessel through fold space. Maya's team worked tirelessly, analyzing the data their virus was sending back. The picture it painted was both disturbing and encouraging. The Concordat's technology was advanced, yes, but stagnant. They hadn't made a truly new discovery in centuries, relying instead on variations of the same basic principles. Their control was maintained not through overwhelming force, but through carefully managed technological dependencies. "They're approaching the hub," James announced on the 4th day. "And our virus has achieved total penetration of their local networks. We're seeing everything." The holographic display filled with data, ship movements, resource allocations, communication protocols. But most importantly, it showed the locations of dozens of enslaved species, each one held in check by carefully controlled technology exports. Maya studied the data, her mind already racing with possibilities. "They've made a fundamental mistake," she said finally. "They've built their entire empire on the assumption that technological progress can be controlled, predicted, and limited. And we're about to prove them wrong," James finished. The damaged Harvester ship finally reached the hub, a massive space station that served as the regional headquarters for their operations. As it docked, the virus that had hitched a ride began its real work, spreading through the hub's networks and out into the wider Concordat systems. Maya watched the infection spread across the star charts, each new connection bringing more data, more understanding. "Send word to Admiral Chen," she ordered. "Tell her Operation Silent Thunder is complete. We now have eyes and ears throughout their empire." The shadow of dawn turned silently in space, its stealth systems still rendering it invisible to the hub's sensors. On its bridge, Maya Patel allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The Concordat had spent centuries building their empire on a foundation of controlled technology and engineered dependencies. They were about to learn that humanity had a very different relationship with technology. Where they saw tools to be controlled, humans saw possibilities to be explored. Where they built walls, humanity built bridges. The next phase would begin soon. But first, they needed to make contact with those who had been enslaved. After all, the best way to break chains was to teach others they were wearing them. Liberation Protocol. The Concordat never saw the revolution coming. Not because it was particularly subtle, but because they were looking in the wrong direction. They expected warships, invasions, direct confrontation. Instead, humanity gave their subjugated worlds something far more dangerous: choice. Commander Alexei Volkov stood on the bridge of the Terra-class vessel Prometheus, watching as another dependency shipment was intercepted. The Concordat's supply ships were laughably easy to track now that humanity had compromised their networks. "Cargo secured," Lieutenant Sarah Wilson reported. "Another load of Type 7 crystalline processors. The Concordat uses these to maintain their control over the Nexari civilization." Alexei nodded, his scared face illuminated by the holographic displays. "Same as the others. They build the processors with deliberate flaws, forcing the Nexari to depend on regular replacements." He turned to the ship's special passenger. "Dr. Patel, would you care to do the honors?" Maya Patel stepped forward, her team already moving to access the captured processors. Over the past months, they had perfected this operation. "Begin the modification process. Standard protocol liberate." The captured processors were quickly modified, enhanced with human quantum technology that removed their intentional flaws while adding something extra: the ability to operate independently of Concordat control systems. More importantly, each processor now carried a message, encoded in a way only the Nexari would understand. "You have a choice." The modified shipment was allowed to continue to its destination, but now it carried the seeds of revolution. The Nexari would discover that their technology could work without Concordat oversight, that their technological benefactors had been deliberately keeping them dependent. "Report from the Artemis Network," Wilson announced. "The Cthid resistance has made contact. They're ready to receive the package." The Cthid were another enslaved species, their biological enhancement technology kept carefully controlled by the Concordat. But humanity had already shown them how to break free of those controls, how to develop their own innovations. "Send the confirmation," Alexei ordered. "And update Admiral Chen. Tell her Phase 3 is proceeding as planned." Across Concordat space, similar scenes were playing out. Human ships, hidden by technology far beyond what the Concordat thought possible, were systematically dismantling the Empire's control systems, not through violence, but through something far more potent: knowledge. "New transmission from the Shadow of Dawn," Wilson reported suddenly. "Priority 1. The holographic display shifted, showing Maya's colleague Dr. James Chen. His expression was urgent. "We've detected increased quantum activity in the hub network. The Concordat is starting to realize something's wrong. They're seeing patterns in the system failures." Alexei exchanged glances with Maya. They had known this moment would come, when the Concordat finally realized their carefully constructed house of cards was being systematically dismantled. "How long?" Maya asked. "Hours, maybe less. They're calling an emergency session of the 7 Species Council." Alexei straightened, his military bearing becoming more pronounced. "Then it's time for Phase 4. Send the signal to all human vessels. Operation Daybreak is now active." Throughout Concordat space, hidden human ships began moving into position. But they weren't preparing for battle. They were preparing to broadcast. Every ship carried the same message, translated into hundreds of languages, ready to be transmitted simultaneously across every Concordat communication channel. Last report from intelligence, Wilson said. The Concordat's emergency session will begin in 1 hour. All 7 ruling species will be present in the hub. Perfect timing, Maya said softly. They'll all be there to hear the truth. Alexei checked the countdown timer. In less than an hour, the carefully maintained illusion of Concordat superiority would be shattered. Every enslaved species would learn the truth about their benefactors, would see the artificial limitations that had been placed on their development. But more importantly, they would learn about an alternative, a species that had watched, learned, and prepared, not to conquer, but to liberate. A humanity that believed in cooperation over control, in innovation over restriction. All ships report ready, Wilson announced. Transmission systems aligned. Alexei nodded. Send the final authorization to Admiral Chen. Tell her the stage is set. The revolution wouldn't be fought with weapons, but with truth. The Concordat was about to learn that the most dangerous force in the galaxy wasn't superior technology or military might. It was the power of choice, and humanity was about to give that choice to everyone. The truth cascade. The Concordat's hub hung in space like a crystalline spider web, its spires reflecting the light of nearby stars. In its central chamber, the 7 Species Council had gathered for their emergency session, their forms ranging from crystalline to biomechanical, from energy-based to purely organic. They had no idea they were about to become part of the largest broadcast in galactic history. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the newly revealed flagship Terra Nova, now decloaked and positioned directly above the hub. The massive vessel represented everything humanity had achieved, a perfect fusion of reverse-engineered Concordat technology and human innovation. All liberation teams report ready, Colonel Marcus Jackson reported. Every enslaved species' primary communication networks have been compromised. We're ready to broadcast. Chen nodded, her expression resolute. Begin the transmission. Across Concordat space, on thousands of worlds, every communication device suddenly activated. Holographic displays, neural interfaces, quantum viewers, all showed the same image. The human flagship hovering above the hub, a visible symbol that the Concordat's power was not absolute. Inside the council chamber, the 7 species representatives watched in mounting horror as their private session was interrupted by an unauthorized transmission. The image of Admiral Chen appeared before them, her uniform bearing no weapons or threats, just the simple insignia of Earth. Honored representatives of the Concordat, she began, her words translated simultaneously into every language in known space. We come not as conquerors, but as liberators. For too long, you have maintained your power through artificial scarcity and engineered dependency. Today that ends. The Archon of the Crystal Collective, eldest of the 7 species, rose in outrage. How dare you interrupt this council? Your primitive species has no authority here. Chen's smile was cold. Primitive. We've been monitoring your activities for decades. We've improved upon your technology while you stagnated. And most importantly, we've learned from your mistakes. Across the galaxy, on every subjugated world, the truth began to unfold. Detailed technical specifications appeared on their networks, showing how the Concordat had deliberately limited their technology. Alongside these revelations came something else. Human innovations that could free them from these limitations. Your empire is built on control, Chen continued, addressing both the council and the trillions watching across space. Ours is built on cooperation. You create dependencies, we create partnerships. You restrict knowledge, we share it freely. The mechanical overseer of the synthetics tried to activate the hub's defense systems, only to find them unresponsive. Human quantum viruses had already ensured that the Concordat couldn't simply shut down the transmission. Already, your control is slipping, Chen noted. The Nexeri have discovered they can maintain their own processors. The Cthid are developing their own biological enhancements. The Vorkath are breaking free of your energy constraints. This is just the beginning. You'll destroy everything. The biomechanical prime shouted. Without our guidance, these species will descend into chaos. No, Chen replied firmly. They will evolve. They will innovate. They will grow. Just as humanity did when we realized we weren't alone in the galaxy. We spent decades preparing not for war, but for this moment. The moment when every species would have the chance to choose their own path. On thousands of worlds, those choices were already being made. The Nexari quantum engineers were discovering they could create processors far more advanced than anything the Concordat had allowed. Cthid biotechnology was evolving beyond its artificial constraints. The Vorkath energy matrices were being redesigned, freed from deliberate inefficiencies. This is your only warning, Chen declared to the council. You can adapt to this new reality, or you can fade into history. The age of controlled evolution is over. The age of cooperative advancement has begun. The council chamber erupted in chaos as the representatives realized the full scope of what was happening. Their carefully maintained system of control was unraveling not through violence, but through something far more powerful, the simple act of sharing knowledge. All ships, maintain position. Chen ordered over the secure human network. Remember, we're not here to fight. We're here to ensure that everyone gets to make their own choice. The revolution they had started couldn't be stopped with weapons or threats. It was spreading through quantum networks, through restored technologies, through the simple realization that there was another way. Humanity had turned the Concordat's greatest weapon, their control of information and technology, against them. The galaxy was changing, one choice at a time. Dawn of cooperation. 6 months after the Truth Cascade, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The great spires of the Concordat hub no longer stood as monuments to control, but had been transformed into the galactic exchange, a center for free sharing of knowledge and technology between species. Dr. Maya Patel walked through its transformed halls, now filled with representatives from hundreds of species, each bringing their own innovations to share. The air hummed with multiple translation fields, allowing for seamless communication between wildly different forms of life. The latest reports from the Nexari systems are impressive, Dr. James Chen said, falling into step beside her. Their quantum processor development has already exceeded our projections. Turns out when you remove artificial limitations, species tend to flourish. Maya smiled, watching as a group of crystalline X-theory engineers discussed theoretical physics with holographic Vorkath energy beings, and the Concordat representatives. Most have adapted better than expected, James replied. Once they realized that cooperation could achieve more than control, many became enthusiastic supporters of the new system, though some are still adjusting. They entered the central chamber, once the exclusive domain of the 7 Species Council, now an open forum where any species could present new ideas and discoveries. Admiral Chen stood at its center, discussing something with a towering Cthid biomechanical expert. Dr. Patel, Chen called out as she approached. Perfect timing. The Cthid have made a breakthrough in combining their biological enhancement technology with our quantum computing principles, something that never would have happened under the old system. The Cthid scientist, Dr. Klax, inclined his cybernetically enhanced head. We have learned that true advancement comes not from hoarding knowledge, but from sharing it. Our latest innovations are already being adapted by 12 other species for their own unique needs. Maya nodded, remembering how different things had been just months ago. The Concordat had maintained power by keeping species separate, dependent, and limited. Humanity had changed that not through superior firepower, but through a radical idea: unrestricted cooperation. Connection from Earth, a communications officer announced. The first graduates of the Interspecies Exchange Program are ready for their assignments. The holographic display showed hundreds of humans and aliens who had spent months learning from each other, preparing to serve as technological and cultural advisors across the galaxy. They were the first wave of a new approach to galactic civilization, one built on mutual understanding and shared progress. "There's something poetic about this," Chen mused, watching the graduation ceremony. "The Concordat spent centuries trying to prevent species from reaching their full potential. In just 6 months of freedom, we're seeing advances that they thought impossible." Maya's quantum pad chimed with another update. The Vorkath energy matrices have been successfully merged with Nexuri processing cores. They're calling it the first truly collaborative technology, something that couldn't have been created by any single species. Around them, the exchange hummed with activity. Species that had once been carefully kept apart were now working together, combining their unique perspectives and abilities to solve problems that had stumped their civilizations for generations. "We took a risk," Chen said quietly, "revealing ourselves, challenging the Concordat, trusting that other species would choose cooperation over control." "We trusted in something fundamental," Maya replied. "The desire to grow, to learn, to improve." The Concordat thought they could suppress that forever. They never realized that desire is what defines intelligent life, not the technology they use or the form they take, but the drive to become more than they are. In the space surrounding the exchange, ships from hundreds of worlds moved in complex patterns, their designs now a beautiful mix of different technological traditions. Humanity's vessels no longer needed to hide. They were just part of the tapestry of galactic civilization. "First contact report from the edges of known space," James announced, checking his quantum interface. "A new species just achieving faster-than-light travel. Under the old system, they would have been marked for subjugation." "And now?" Chen asked, though she already knew the answer. "The nearest exchange delegation is preparing to welcome them. No restrictions, no controls, just an invitation to join the galactic community as equals." Maya looked out at the stars, visible through the exchange's transparent walls. Somewhere out there, humanity's first contact team was preparing to meet these new neighbors. They would carry no weapons, no demands, no schemes for control. Instead, they would bring something far more powerful, the offer of true partnership. The age of the Concordat was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and it had started not with a shot fired in anger, but with a simple choice. The choice to trust in the better nature of all intelligent life. In the end, that had been humanity's greatest weapon. Not the technology they had developed, not the strategies they had planned, but their fundamental belief that given the chance, most beings would choose to reach for the stars together rather than alone. The galaxy would never be the same.